Is the Vice President going to speak about the e-levy?
Can you? Yeah, I think basically, as you are aware, um, we are not in normal times, and the world all over, people are experiencing new normal ways of living that seem to take us from our comfort zone. And there's also cause for new ideas and new measures to tackle the difficulties. We in Ghana, we have been fed with signals of what government thinks should be the direction in order to get out of the um, problems that we've been confronted with as a result of coronavirus, Russia-Ukraine war, and other issues. As part of the strategies and the policies we put in place were some task measures, and of course, the e-levy became topical. The back and forth, at the end of the day, we have it passed to Parliament. So, understandably, the conversation before the passage of the e-levy is not the same as it is today. In the past, a matter of justifying it, explaining why it is needed, and all of that. We passed it. What Ghanaians are looking up to is the fact that the proceeds of the e-levy will be put to judicious use to the benefit of every Ghanaian. And so today, in the Vice President's presentation, at the risk of revealing everything, I think he would talk about taxes, he talk about taxation, and I'm sure e-levy is part of the tax handles that we have. And so I don't expect that taxes will be mentioned in this presentation, and e-levy will not feature at all. But as to how and the scope that mention of e-levy would take, I will not be able to tell. But I'm sure once he's going to talk about taxes as part of the revenue measures and what we're doing to get the economy back on track as it used to be before, e-levy will definitely find a place in the presentation.
Now, Dr. Boako, you started by saying we have been through difficult times, and as we go through the difficult times, you'd have to look for measures that would, be able to address the difficult times. And straight to me, it comes out as if, well, yes, in the past, I may have said this or that, but based on the current dispensation we find ourselves in, a few things are bound to change. Do I get the impression that because people have talked about, the vice president in the past, haven't talked about e-levy and saying we shouldn't tax Momo, are you by way of, preempting what is likely to say that the exigencies of this time would need different solutions than he proposed in the past?
Well, I think by and large, if you read the mood of government and the mood of Ghanaians, the understanding is there that on the face of it, um, pursuing an agenda of digital governance and at the same time placing a cost on it may be seen as running up toward each other. But, you know, government looks at all these considerations and takes decisions, of course, makes proposals to the people through our representatives to say that, yes, ordinarily, maybe we wouldn't have gone this line. But looking at the exigencies of the time and the need to shore up our revenues and other things, we think if we are able to rope in this revenue handle to increase our revenue, to deliver more services to the people in a manner in which there is transparency, proper accountability, we'll be able to scale over the hurdles until the time that we feel we are okay and all of that. So these are policy signals, policy indications. Of course, we don't expect that every policy that government announces will have the full endorsement of the people. Sometimes it's also because of understanding of the whole thing at the beginning. So as government keeps explaining and people buy into it, and we all reach the conclusion that for the betterment of the nation, we have to do this. We have to do that in humility. Okay. And I think that is the path that we are on now. We've crossed that stage. To be Parliament has approved it. What we are looking up to as a law-abiding citizens expecting much from our government is that government push the revenues that will come from the e-levy to good use so that we can see the impact of this tax that we are paying. At the end of the day, if people don't see value for money, they don't see that the taxes they are paying, although challenging for them, are put to good use, we all become disappointed. And that's the expectation that we all expect from government, that government will put it to good use. And I'm sure once we see the visible benefits of it, it's been like other taxes and VAT and others. There were serious oppositions to them, but along the line, people get found in the communication tax. We think they are helping us, and so far as they will benefit us, we think we can make do with that. So there's huge responsibility on government to prove to Ghanaians that this was a justifiable cause, and so it is, and so it should be.
Dr. Boako, in recent times, there have been so many calls on the Vice President to speak, especially as we started to feel a bit of a pinch in the economy. People were asking, where is Dr. Bawumia? Why has he been quiet for so long? Why has it taken this long for us to hear from him?
It's quite surprising when people say the Vice President has been quiet. Honestly, that cannot be a true statement. I mean, I have the calendar for the Vice President throughout the year. And this year, the Vice President has made not less than 20 public addresses and all of that. So sometimes I see this whole question of he's been quiet a bit politically tainted. Otherwise, there hasn't been any Vice President in this country who has been attending programs, speaking at events, commissioning projects, cutting source, more than what Dr. Bawumia has done. So,
but has he been speaking on the economy?
Oh, yeah. You see, you attend different forums, and depending on the topic for the occasion, you speak to the topic. The Vice President cannot attend the function of Joy.FM where they are talking about gender equality, and then he goes to talk about something else. And there have been occasions where the topics for the forum that he is addressing have necessitated that he speaks about the economy. He does so. I mean, recently commissioned two of the zipline projects, one in the Boako region, I think one at the other place. He found a way to even talk about exchange rate matters and all of that. But I don't see why somebody would sit back and say Bawumia has been quiet. I mean, we all know Vice President Bawumia has been one of the outspoken, vociferous Vice Presidents ever produced in this country. So there's that politics of it that, I mean, politically, let's say he's been quiet. That cannot be true. Every time the Vice President gets the opportunity, he makes his views clear, that is digital economy and the macro and everything. But let us also remember this. People say, oh, in opposition, he spoke, he did this, he did that. Yes, in 2014, when the exchange rate matters got worse, he spoke at a national platform. It is not the case that the Vice President should hold such public lecture 5 times in a year or 3 times. He has never done it before. 2019, in April, 3rd April, he spoke, did the first town hall, EMT town hall meetings. 2020, the major platform that he used to speak was the closing argument. 2021 last year, he took time, organized a Shesi lecture, and then spoke on the digital economy. So it's like almost every year, I think in 2017, he did this 100 days thing with Joy Multimedia. Remember, Kojo?
Yes.
And then he also spoke. So every year, upon all the lectures that he conducts and the programs that he attends, he just takes one opportunity to speak at such a bigger platform in which the speech is broadcast across many radio stations. He doesn't do it multiple times. But aside these one-off speeches that he makes in a year, there are others that he does through programs he attends. Of course, the scale of publicity for such engagements are not as wide as in the special cases like this one that he does. So people may think, because even in opposition, in 2014, it was just a big platform, I think the one at Central University, that he spoke. The rest of it were other political meetings that he goes. But the scale of publicity for those ones, which are in multiples, are not as high as these one-offs. So I don't see it when people say he's been quiet or something. Right. It's neither here nor there. All of these are just political jabs and all of that. So
all right. Let me share a tweet with you. Kobe Jr. J says, because we've been asking people what they expect the Vice President to talk about. And Kobe Jr. J says, there are 3 areas he will talk about. 1, Mahama. 2, COVID-19. 3, Russia and Ukraine war. OV8 or Ethe says, well, he has to say something, but the truth is nothing concrete will emerge. Just figures and more drama, and then he ends it all with a bashing for JM. So people are expecting that some jabs at the former president will be part of his presentation. Plus, they are probably expecting some digitalization information, and then a lot of what COVID-19 and Russia and Ukraine have done to our economy. How accurate are these listeners?
Yeah, because I think these are expressions from the public alongside others that you've not heard or shared on your platform. And if you're a leader and you want to be accountable to the people, and you have such an opportunity to engage the people at this level, you should be able to speak to reflect the mindset of the people. So it will not be out of place if some of these concerns that people have expressed, talk about Elevy, talk about taxes, the situation we find ourselves in, of course, occasioned by Russia-Ukraine war, COVID-19, and all of that. The aspects of the jobs, I'm not too sure about that. You see, if you're a leader, you should be able to gauge the mood of the people and look at the times and seasons and know how your presentation must fit into the times and seasons. We are not in a political season. I mean, every Ghanaian understands that in the peak of the political campaigns, politicians may throw jabs at each other, however pacific they come across or not. But I don't think any serious politician who is quite sensitive to the plight and the concerns of Ghanaians will have such a platform to address the people of Ghana in a situation where we are reeling under the first COVID-19 and Russia-Ukraine war. Prices are high on the market. Exchange rate depreciation has been on the ascendancy for the first quarter of this year. And there's an opportunity to address the Ghanaian people, and you politicize such an opportunity. I can't speak so much into details, but I think Vice President Baumia, as humble as he is, as sensitive as he is, as learned as he is, a father, a statesman, would definitely know how to navigate his way through this presentation. And I'm sure at the end of the day, the people of Ghana will appreciate where he's coming from, why he's speaking the way he's speaking today, in a more sensitive manner, and dealing with issues as they are, speaking the truth. This is not the time to say if things are hard, to say no, things are sweet, everything is fine. Where things are better, of course, he is at liberty to talk about that. But where things are also a bit tough, he will make that known, because he is known for speaking to the data. And there's no way he would try to turn over the data and say the data is positive where it is not. But why the data is also good, he will make mention of that. So he's going to be very factual. You see the level of honesty in his presentation. And I'm sure that is what people want. Sometimes we may be going through challenges, but just a sheer admission of same and the indication that this is where we are coming from. This is why we are where we are. This is what we are trying to do. This is the future we are trying to arrive at. This is how we want to get there. If people see that genuineness, that level of honesty and truthfulness in such conversations, sometimes we may be in pain, but just suiting words and frankness, the way you're able to go about things in a candid matter, gives hope to people that indeed things may not be normal today, but there is some kind of light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. We've been talking to Dr. Gideon Boako, who speaks for the Vice President. Vice President will be delivering an address later today. Dr. Boako, just before you go, final question. Are there going to be more promises?
I don't think there's anything to promise now. We've heard from Bank of Ghana. We've heard from the finance minister, who's actually in charge of the finances and the fiscals for the state. We've heard from the president. It's everything that government is trying to do by way of interventions have been announced to Bank of Ghana, finance minister, and the president. Unless if there are any new information that these have not talked about, and the authority of the president, the vice president, may talk about them. I think this is more of delving deeper into the matters to bring some level of clarity and explanation to some of the questions that are, in the minds of people. For instance, people ask the questions, the economic fundamentals, okay, why is the exchange rate depreciating? I think he will try to address the concerns on the minds of people for us to appreciate what the situation is and the questions that your listeners may want answers for. We have tried as much as possible to see if he can, in all humility and honesty, try to, deal with some of these mind-boggling issues and also talk about what government is doing and what we are trying to do to scale over the hurdles of the situations that we find ourselves in. So I don't think it's going to be much of new promises or anything of the sort.
Okay. When you say, for instance, that the finance minister is speaking, the president is speaking, if there's any new thing with the authority of the president, the vice president would say it. Do I get the impression in planning to speak on the economy, he was waiting for the president to deliver the State of the Nation address before he speaks?
No. Every year, every situation, government rolls out a communication plan. I think in 2019, when we were about to exit IMF, before the EMT town hall meeting was held, I think, but then the president had given the State of the Nation address, and the vice president spoke after. 2020, of course, it was a campaign year. He gave the closing argument, I think 1 week or so to the election. I think it was the last major presentation he made last year, getting to end of the year. So there's no definite pattern or order as to when he should do this one-off lecture in a year. Sometimes it's the date and the timing is determined, and the platform is determined by the circumstances, and there's no definite order and there's no definite arrangement, I should say. I think it's one of those things that happens that you plan to do it as and when it becomes necessary. I wouldn't say there was any plan to do it before or after this presentation. That I can't think about any such definite pattern.
All right. Thank you very much.
Finally, just about the format of it, will there be questions and answers at some point?
I need to check up with the organizers also of the program.
Right.
But for this one, I'm not too sure. But I think if the opportunity avails itself, we do so. I remember when we were doing the Ashesi one, initially because of the place, the distance from Accra, and the time, we had planned there was not going to be questions and answers. But when we got there, and after the presentation, looking at the situation, we allowed some questions and answers. So it wouldn't be out of place if something like that happens. But we may have to check up again and get back to you on that.
All right. Dr. Gideon Boako, thank you so much for your time with us this morning.
Most welcome. Grateful, Kaja.
And that's, of course, the spokesperson of the Vice President, who will be addressing some issues when he speaks to TESCON's gathering later this afternoon. Stay with us. More to come on the Super Morning Show. Particularly, our Living Standards series brings us the story of those who cultivate Ghana's cash crop, cocoa. They say their living standards is miles away from what they deserve.
Cocoa na ayeteno. Beko akodono. Sika ro kagoto endro begu afuo no kra no. Na ayasem.
What would you do if you have the choice to do anything